There's a kind of strength that isn't loud, and it doesn't come from doing more. It's the strength of understanding what truly matters, of holding on to the basics when the world around you insists on chasing the next big thing. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, one of Japan's most beloved physicians, lived well past 100 years. He often said that longevity was not about adding layers of complexity to life, but about knowing the simple truths so deeply that they became part of you. In his eyes, a steady walk, a shared meal, and a purpose each morning held more power than any passing trend. After 60, the body speaks in a different language. It no longer demands the fast pace of youth. It whispers, waits, and hopes you will listen. Health at this stage isn't about loading your days with new routines, new supplements, or chasing the latest miracle you hear about on television. It's about recognizing the signals your body gives you each day and respecting the slower, wiser rhythm that aging brings. The stiffness in your knees, the yawn after lunch, the quiet joy of the sun on your skin. These are not interruptions to life, but messages worth understanding. Dr. Andrew Weil, a pioneer in integrative medicine, reminds us that the true pillars of wellness are often the simplest: the way we breathe, how we move, the quality of our sleep, and the health of our digestion. These are the quiet foundations that carry us through every season of life. They don't demand expensive equipment or complicated programs. They ask only for your attention and consistency, in a way that feels right for your own pace. This video is an invitation to return to those foundations, not as a burden, but as a gift to yourself. Over the next minutes, we will explore 4 overlooked basics that every senior should understand. We will speak plainly, without confusing words or impossible expectations, but with actions you can begin today, even from your kitchen table or your favorite chair by the window. The journey we're about to take is not about rushing toward change, but about planting small seeds of care each day. Because the truth is, the basics are never basic when they are done with presence. And the body, your body, still listens when you speak to it with kindness. Energy doesn't always leave the body in one great sweep. Often it seeps away quietly, almost politely, until one morning you notice that getting out of bed feels heavier than it used to. Many believe this is simply getting older, but there's another story unfolding beneath the surface. As the years pass, a gentle but persistent fire can burn inside. Not the fire of vitality, but of low-grade inflammation. It doesn't roar like an injury or an illness. It lingers, fed by restless nights, by a digestion that feels a little slower, by joints that carry their own quiet tension. And because it doesn't make itself obvious, it becomes part of the background of life, silently stealing the strength you thought you had lost to age. This kind of hidden drain doesn't ask for more effort, but for less waste. The key is not in pushing harder, but in sealing the small leaks where your energy escapes unnoticed. Sometimes it begins in the gut, where food isn't broken down as well as it once was, leaving the body working overtime. Sometimes it's in the stiffness that settles into the joints overnight, so subtle you barely think to stretch it away. And often it's in the mornings when inflammation is at its highest, quietly shaping the tone of your day before you've even had your first sip of tea. Small, consistent rituals can begin to close these gaps. Picture the morning starting with a glass of warm water, soothing your insides before a single word is spoken. Imagine the slow, grounding motion of your hands circling the navel, waking up the center of your body, coaxing digestion into a gentler rhythm. Then, the quiet warmth of sunlight on your face, just a few minutes, not rushed, as the light tells your body it is safe to start again. These are not grand acts, but they speak directly to the systems that keep you steady. You don't lose energy simply because the years have passed. Energy slips away when the body's whispers are drowned out by the noise of busyness, by the habit of ignoring what feels small. The truth is, those small things are often the gatekeepers of vitality. When you learn to hear them again, to notice the way your body calls for ease, you'll find that strength doesn't always come from doing more. Sometimes it comes from doing less, but doing it with care. There is a kind of conversation the body has with itself that does not use words. It travels through skin, through nerves, through the gentle pressure of touch. From the moment we are born, touch guides our awareness of where we are, how we stand, how we move. Yet as the years pass, many slowly stop engaging in this quiet language, especially with certain parts of the body. Knees, ankles, the soft curve of the belly, they become forgotten territories. Not because they are unimportant, but perhaps because they ache or feel stiff, or no longer move as freely as they once did. When these places go untouched for too long, something else happens beyond the stiffness. The brain's map of the body, the intricate connection that tells you where your limbs are even with your eyes closed, begins to fade. Without the gentle reminders of touch, microcirculation slows. Signals from nerves become quieter. The body, in its quiet way, starts to forget parts of itself. This forgetting isn't sudden, but it can influence balance, stability, and even confidence when walking or standing. The beauty is that this conversation can be rekindled in the simplest ways. Imagine the slow, reassuring motion of hands over the knees after a long day. Picture a soft towel warming the skin of your belly, stirring a sense of presence in the core. Or the quiet ritual of rubbing the feet before sleep, reminding them they are still part of the journey. These acts are small, but they awaken pathways that time tries to dim. They carry the warmth of self-care without the weight of effort, telling the body it is still here, still whole, still alive. The body you stop touching is the one that forgets it is still alive. Noticing, feeling, acknowledging each part, even for a few moments, is like turning a light back on in a familiar room. Do you begin to stand a little steadier, to step with more certainty? Not because your muscles have changed overnight, but because the connection between mind and body is once again intact. In those quiet moments of touch, you are not only caring for skin and joints, you are reminding every part of you that it still belongs. Breathing is the one act we perform without pause, the rhythm that carries us from birth to the very last moment. It is so constant, so familiar, that we rarely stop to think about how we do it. Many believe that as long as air enters and leaves the lungs, the body is getting what it needs. But after the age of 60, the body often shifts into a habit it didn't intend. Shallow breathing high in the chest, where the shoulders rise but the belly remains still. This habit creeps in slowly, shaped by years of posture, tension, and perhaps even the quiet weight of worry. When breathing stays trapped in the chest, the oxygen reaching the body is less than it could be. The brain receives less fuel. The balance of the inner ear, so dependent on steady oxygen flow, may waver. The lymph, the body's silent cleaning system, moves more sluggishly. Since deep diaphragmatic breathing is one of the ways it circulates, digestion, too, feels the effect, as the gentle movement of the diaphragm helps keep the gut in rhythm. Without even realizing it, the body begins living on smaller breaths, and the mind accepts this as normal. The way back is not about force or perfection, but about remembering a natural pattern the body once knew well. Picture sitting in your favorite chair, hands resting lightly over your belly, and simply noticing how the air moves. When the belly rises more than the chest, the breath is deep enough to reach the lower lungs, where oxygen exchange is richest. This is not a new skill to learn. It is the restoration of something your body was born knowing. Over time, this deeper breathing can bring a sense of calm, sharpen the mind, and renew a quiet steadiness in the step. Aging doesn't shrink the lungs. What changes is that the body forgets to use them fully. And when you remind it, gently, patiently, each breath becomes more than just survival. It becomes a steady, life-giving rhythm that feeds every cell, clears the fog from the mind, and restores the sense that you are fully present in your own body. Breathing deeply is not a miracle cure. It is a quiet return to a truth your body has been waiting to remember. With age comes experience, and with experience comes a certain familiarity with life's lessons. By the time the hair turns silver, most people have heard, and even tried, countless pieces of advice about health. Drink water. Stand often. Chew slowly. Sleep well. These suggestions arrive so often in so many forms that they begin to lose their weight. The mind says, I already know this. And with that thought, the door to action quietly closes. Not out of rebellion, but because repetition without renewal can make even the wisest habits feel ordinary. The challenge is that the body does not live in ideas. It lives in what is done. A truth heard 100 times still means nothing if it is not lived in the moment. Years of routine can make old habits feel safe, even if they no longer serve the body's needs. The mind remembers the knowledge, but the body begins to drift away from it. This is why someone can agree that standing regularly supports circulation, yet spend long afternoons without rising from a chair. The knowing remains, but the doing fades. There is a quiet kind of renewal that comes from meeting the familiar as if it were new. Drinking a glass of water not because it's good for you, but as if you were tasting its coolness for the first time in months. Standing and stretching not because you've read about it, but because you are curious how it feels in this exact moment. Walking slowly, noticing each step as if your feet are discovering the ground beneath them anew. When the familiar is met with presence, it regains its power. The danger isn't in what you don't know. It lies in what you set aside because you believe you already do it. In returning to the basics with fresh eyes, you breathe new life into them, and they, in turn, breathe new life into you. The years may bring wisdom, but it is the practice of that wisdom, renewed each day, that shapes the quality of your health and the strength of your days. Health in the later years is often imagined as a complicated equation, one that demands the latest scientific breakthrough, a long list of supplements, or the most sophisticated diet plan. Yet, in truth, what sustains a person at 70, 80, or beyond is rarely found in what is new or extraordinary. It lives quietly in the foundations, in the small and faithful habits that continue to nourish the body and steady the mind over time. These foundations are not glamorous, but they hold the kind of strength that does not fade quickly. They do not require wealth, constant novelty, or a life free from limitations. They ask only for recognition and care, given steadily. There is a certain peace in knowing that your well-being is not dependent on chasing something far away. The body, even as it ages, still responds with remarkable generosity when the basics are honored. A night of real rest, unbroken by noise or tension, can restore more energy than any pill. A meal of simple, wholesome food, eaten slowly and with appreciation, can settle the stomach and lift the mood in ways that an expensive tonic cannot match. A short walk, repeated most days, can keep joints from stiffening and the heart from growing sluggish. These are not ideas meant to impress, but acts that have proven themselves over a lifetime, in households and cultures that value endurance over spectacle. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara often reminded people that the pace of aging quickens the moment we stop moving, stop questioning, or stop finding meaning in our daily actions. He did not speak of grand achievements, but of the choice to remain engaged in life, even in the smallest ways. Reading a page of a book each morning, tending a plant on the windowsill, sharing a few words with a neighbor. These are not trivial gestures. They keep the mind alert, the spirit connected, and the body gently active. The older one becomes, the more it is these modest acts that guard against decline, because they are both achievable and sustainable. This approach to longevity is echoed by Dr. Andrew Weil, who sees health not as the absence of illness, but as a balanced rhythm that adapts to each stage of life. He speaks of breath that is deep and unhurried, of movement that suits the body's current strength, of sleep that is not sacrificed to restless thoughts or artificial light, and of nourishment that favors freshness and variety over complication. These are not abstract ideas. They are choices made every day, in kitchens, bedrooms, and quiet corners of the home. The beauty is that they require no approval from outside forces, only the willingness to be attentive to one's own needs. With time, it becomes easier to overlook these basics. The familiarity of advice like drink enough water or stand up regularly can make it sound unimportant, especially when repeated year after year. But knowledge alone has never been enough to sustain health. The body does not live on what we have heard. It lives on what we have practiced. To rediscover the impact of these acts, it helps to see them not as obligations, but as opportunities to reconnect with the present moment, pouring a glass of water and feeling its coolness, stretching the back and sensing the air filling the lungs, pausing before a meal to notice the aroma and warmth of what is before you. When approached with attention, the familiar becomes alive again, and the body receives it as nourishment. It is important to remember that aging does not mean a complete loss of vitality, but a shift in how it is sustained. The reserves may not replenish as quickly, but they still replenish. Muscles may take longer to respond, but they still respond. Memory may need more repetition, but it can still hold and recall. The body retains its willingness to serve you, provided you meet it where it is rather than where it once was. This is why consistency in the basics is so powerful. They work within the body's current capacity instead of against it, allowing you to maintain strength and clarity without depleting what energy remains. There will always be temptations to complicate this truth. There will be headlines promising a revolutionary cure, products claiming to reverse time, or programs insisting that you must overhaul your entire lifestyle in one dramatic sweep. But those who have lived longest and healthiest rarely speak in such terms. They speak instead of what they have done for decades, preparing their own meals, walking to the market, waking up with purpose, tending to relationships, and making time for rest. These are habits born not from fear of aging, but from respect for life's simple offerings. When health is approached this way, it stops being a source of constant anxiety. You are no longer measuring yourself against impossible standards or feeling guilty for not keeping up with every trend. Instead, you are choosing what is both within reach and deeply effective. You are trusting that the body's design, though weathered by years, still knows how to heal, strengthen, and adapt when given the right environment. This shift in perspective turns health into something steady and dependable, rather than a moving target. In the quiet moments of the day, it can be powerful to reflect on this. Your body has carried you through every chapter of your life. It has adapted to loss, celebrated joy, endured hardship, and held on through uncertainty. Even now, it continues to work for you in ways you cannot see, repairing cells, balancing rhythms, protecting against illness. It asks for very little in return compared to all it gives. A balanced meal, a few moments of deep breathing, the stretch of muscles that have been still too long, a night's sleep without interruption. These are small acts of gratitude, and their effects reach further than you may realize. There is no need to search endlessly for something extraordinary. The extraordinary has been with you from the start, the body's ability to renew itself when treated with patience and care. The basics are not lesser simply because they are simple. In fact, their very simplicity is what allows them to be repeated day after day, year after year, becoming the quiet scaffolding that holds up your later life. Aging well does not demand that you do everything, only that you do what matters most, and do it with consistency. In this, the days ahead can be shaped not by fear of what might come, but by the steady confidence that you are giving yourself the best chance to live them well.